Welcome to another episode of Angels, Positivity, and Love. Absolutely incredible guests the world over with incredible talents, incredible insights, and they've usually been through a personal journey of transformation, sometimes difficulty, sometimes near-death experiences. They've often turned into healers, experts, giving advice to others, but often just helping others, or they're in service to others. That's what this show is about. It's called Angels, Positivity, and Love. Not everybody has to meet angels on the program, but they're around. They're around in our lives. The positivity part, well, that's abundance. And love, 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 as Ben Stiller said in the Heartbreak Kid film from the movies in Hollywood. Hey, love is what makes the world go round. Love is the fabric of the universe. And so I'd like to introduce probably our most popular guest, our most steadfast, super talented. He's been teaching mindfulness for 50 years. His teachings are in the public school systems of about 48 states, particularly in terms of big cities, LA, Atlanta. He's taught at Omega. He was a Stargate remote viewer for just a short period of time in the 70s. You can check him out. This is his third appearance on the APL show. He was episode 7, February 26th of 2023 for about 2 hours. Get his origin story there. He shares an awful lot, incredible details, takes steps on air as well, not shy. And then he was episode 58, February 25th of this year, 2024. You're seeing this January 1st for 2025. So happy New Year, everybody. Please hit that subscribe button, like, share, and comment. Emojis work as comments. It helps other people see the show. Paul Sugar, you've also been on three panels, number 2, number 8, and number 10. You are a popular man, and you're also super learned. Welcome to the show. Thank you for coming back on.
Well, thanks for having me, Mike. Always a pleasure to be with you on your show.
Okay.
You're doing good work.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Hey, we've had a lot of fun together too over time. I've spent a lot of time with you. I totally respect where you're coming from, who you are, what you do for folks. You've got an incredible capacity to be plugged into the universe. That's the only way I really know how to say it. Call it being intuitive or just being open. You open openness almost like no other, but let's not let it go to your head the whole way. Can you just give us a quick summary of, hey, you've been there, you've done a lot, you're still learning though. What do you do for folks? What have you been doing? You do teach mindfulness meditation for about 50 years. That's your formal title. But do people really realize how intuitive you are?
That's a good question, Mike. I would venture to say no. There's a part of my, shall we say, inner life that I haven't really shared over the past actually 55 years that I've been practicing and teaching a combination of mindfulness, Kaballah, and yoga. Um, that part of my life we have talked about on your show, which has to do with my ability to experience altered states through the practice of meditation. And so, up until maybe 2 years ago, I never really spoke about it. I'm not quite sure why. It might have something to do with the Stargate program, which, was emphasized that it was a CIA program, never talk about it, blah, 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 blah. But then it got declassified, but I never paid much attention. So I still felt these were things that maybe weren't really of interest to people, and things that I wasn't really willing to share at the time. And so what I do share is my experience in the practice of mindfulness meditation, mindfulness and meditation. And I kind of keep that on the straight and narrow. So that other part of me, the intuitive, the altered states, the universal experiences, out of body stuff, extended experiences, that has been kept under wraps till about 2 years ago, when somehow it slipped out. And then I started getting calls for interviews and so forth and so on. And then also the resurgence in the interest of psychedelics which corresponds, of course, to people's interest and hunger uh, for the experience of altered states for many, many reasons. Probably most basic is to overcome the fear of dying, which a lot of these altered states will help you to overcome. So, being on the straight and narrow for most of those 55 years, I just kind of kept my teaching um, geared toward getting in the present moment, reducing stress, getting the system, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, getting those all in sync, and guiding people in the direction of just having a life that feels more full, where they can experience more deeply, have greater connection to themselves, to others, and the universe, so forth and so on. And so it's a short story. I could have made it much longer for 2 or 3 or 4 hours, but that's pretty much the synopsis there.
And you had a near-death experience, that Mustang on a wet road headed back to Syracuse, New York in the 60s. That was a part of it that actually helped turn the quarter. You had a wicked, let's use a Massachusetts term, a wicked fear of death for a very long time, starting at a very early age, that left you basically as a giant empath or sponge, sucking in other people's feelings, illnesses, you name it. And that led you to this the seeking for what boundaries, for instruction. You had a couple of instructors come along and more. You even had some experiences meeting some galactic figures, and sometimes it wasn't a lucid dream at all or dream time. It was actually, it was about almost as awake and as aware as you could be. So you have shared a lot with us over time. um, Looking at mankind now, we're just going to go for the $5 billion question, an eternal one. Good luck with this, but if anybody was equipped to handle it, what's going on today with man? Is it any different than 10,000 years ago, 1,000 years ago? Is there more awareness, consciousness coming? Is love the fabric of the universe? Is all this, quote, chaos, this, that person's wrong, I'm right, division going on? Is it healthy? Is it just the way it is? How do you just
Yeah. So my memory isn't as fresh with the 1,000 years ago, the 10,000 years ago, as it is in the present moment. However, um, I will speculate that nowadays the grand awakening is far more present than it was many, many years ago. Earth as a whole, humanity as a whole, um, seems to be for sure coming to a point where a consciousness is emerging. And one of the indications, one of the many indications of that, believe it or not, and it seems counterintuitive, is the amount of chaos that we're seeing out there in the world. Things are really coming to a head, and what that tells me on the inside is that rapid change, rapid, profound change is taking place. And whenever rapid, profound change takes place, there's always that feeling and appearance and actuality of chaos, not only on the inside, but on the outside as well. So we're seeing it in the world, which is just really a reflection of what's going on inside of us as well. Many people feeling very chaotic on the inside, and so all of that's getting mirrored on the outside. And so we see that continuum between the inside and the outside, and we see the chaos, which is confirmation that all of these things are happening. And although science is at a loss to explain consciousness and so forth and so on, we can still rely on our own inner experience, which in the end is really the most important thing. I think science has a ways to go before they can start measuring consciousness and the related subjects. I think technology will eventually be able to measure these things, but for now, definitely not. So we rely on our inner experience, and we trust that our inner experience is leading us in the right direction.
Hmm. Can any amount of war, violence, censorship, bad economies, division, can any amount of that stop the progress of more consciousness and light coming in?
once again, in my opinion, because we're not going to rely on science. So, in my humble opinion, there's no stopping it.
Hmm.
Particularly at this point, I think it's more than reached critical mass. So it's just rumbling down the road, and really nothing's going to stop it.
Okay, and let's ask it a different way. Is science quite limited because it's dependent on thinking, which in and of itself isn't going away? But do people even realize how limiting thinking is, the judging that goes with it? It's judging and knowing that precludes possibility, and the universe doesn't operate that way. It's almost out of sync with the universe at this point. I think there's a couple of terms that some scientists have been using. There's materialist science, there's post-materialist science, to find a way to describe dark ages of science, which all of us would generally accept if we picked up a biology book or this textbook or that. At least we would have 10 years ago. To me, it's blatantly or blaringly or whatever the word is apparent that there's something limited about it, that it's not listening at all to what's available to the universe. And I would simply add, for anybody out there watching, you can have any answers to any questions. All languages spoken, all dialects. I don't see the questions or answers. It's available. What do you want to ask? Are you willing to listen? It takes that much time. But back to the bigger picture about science, post-materialist, materialist science. What's your opinion on that one more time, even though you've talked about it a little bit?
Yeah, well, you're asking about the mind. Um, I think inherently there's nothing wrong with the mind. Um, but in actuality, at the moment, with the state of turmoil on the inside, I'll talk a little bit biology here. One of the things that we can measure in science is the condition of the autonomic nervous system. And what we're seeing when we're measuring the autonomic nervous system is is a preponderance of people. In fact, I would venture to say most people who are stuck in that phenomenon called fight or flight.
If you
And
don't
the reason,
mind, can you get into that more? I'm just making a joke, if you don't mind.
yeah, yeah, I could not mind, and then we wouldn't talk at all. I can stop the thinking, right there, which is actually a nice state to be in. But getting back to that, I'll turn it back on again.
Yes.
Yeah, so the autonomic nervous system regulates fight or flight, which is our survival instinct. And to me, that's the master switch in the body, not the brain, not the heart, not all the other things, which are all of course, very, very important. But to me, the master switch is the autonomic nervous system because it oversees our survival instinct. And it really represents the unconscious. And because for so many people, they're stuck in the fight or flight mode, it means that they're carrying around all of that fear and anxiety and anger and hostility and so forth and so on, which influences the thoughts in the mind. That's where the problem is. Where are the thoughts coming from, those negative thoughts? Well, they're coming from the autonomic nervous system's response to the survival instinct. And so that's why I say inherently, there's nothing wrong with the mind. We just need to, balance out that autonomic nervous system survival instinct, get rid of the fear and the anxiety and the anger and all that stuff, and the mind will line up very nicely. Now, in terms of research, the mind does require to prove things like consciousness and so forth and so on. It does, one of the natures of the mind is it requires our ability to measure things. And that's why I said earlier, science has not invented yet instruments that can measure consciousness and all of the other things related to the field of consciousness. And so because we can't measure these things, the mind has a tendency in its chaotic state to disregard um, any field that can't be proven based on the requirements of the mind, meaning hard evidence, hard measurement, so forth and so on. So we've gotten away from trusting our own intuition, from trusting our own inner experiences, and we've defaulted and we've given our power over to science, and so we have to be able our mind in its chaotic condition requires us to be able to measure, to see, to explain logically, to be able to reproduce effects, blah, 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 all of which are interesting and important. And I think eventually science will get there in the field of consciousness, as I've said already, probably twice. But for now, not so much. And so I think an important thing that we need to do as a race is to learn how to rely more on our own intuition, on our own inner life, our own inner feelings, balance out that survival uh, mechanism that's feeding negative thoughts to our thinking process based on fear and anxiety and all the other iterations of fear and so forth and so on. So once we're able to balance that out, get our mind to where it needs to be, which allows for the acceptance of intuition and inner experience, I think we'll be on a good path.
Mm. We're about to prove it way earlier in the show than we normally do, but people can check out your past panels, your shows. You've taken a lot of steps on air. We've taken a lot of steps together. Again, you're one of my favorite people on the planet, just because you're so open. We've spent a lot of time together, and I'm very appreciative of that. I'm going to do a quick quote, though, that goes back to what you were just saying. Those who feel energy in all have never measured it. Those who try to measure it never feel it. Anonymous, since I never wrote down who said this. But we can do it a different way. There's a classic Indian expression: a mind that is fast is sick, a mind that is slow is sound, a mind that is still is divine. Divine's good. Good luck with that twice a day, like a broken clock. Look, there's a lot of thinking going on. If I go and knock, I've been doing this 13 years. I've garnered thousands of yeses, thousands of nos. Hopefully not 10,000 no's. But if I go to a 10 or 100 doors and it all says this particular religion or philosophy, I don't want to single out anyone, but it's all of them. If I go to the Einstein clubs or the Plato clubs and I'm like, hey, does anybody want to meet Einstein or Plato? 8 out of 10 or 800 out of 1,000 will say, go away, I'm looking for Einstein or Plato. And I'm borrowing from Zen and the art of motorcycle maintenance, the famous quote about truth. Truth comes knocking on the door and you yell, go away, I'm looking for the truth. And as funny as that is, that's the quote from Robert Pirsig. But it's absolutely the case. And it's nothing personal, because the person who says no then 6 months later, 2 years later, could be like, yeah, no, let's meet Buddha. Let's meet an angel, the angel crowd, where it's just our brains are not disposed to staying open. We have to concrete, do Polaroid snapshots, and be in judgment of everything. And I get it. And we need to know, what's what, what's up, what's down, what's right, what's left. That has not been your experience at all. At a galactic, universal, cosmos level, can you just give us a touch of your experience in reality that dwarfs most people, unless it was their dream time, and half those people don't remember it? It was in dream time. You've had more experiences where you've been awake. Part of it was to help you to overcome the fear of death, but could you share just a smidge about that?
Yeah, well, of course, this is something that we've talked about before, but briefly, just to recap, after my near-death experience in 1969, it seemed to have switched a switch internally, and I started meeting people who were interested in meditation, the various contemplative and meditative traditions all over the world. So I started learning, reading about all of those things. Joined a couple study groups, one with yoga, one with Kaballah, which is Jewish mysticism. Started doing a lot of reading, but more than that, I started practicing these different forms of meditation. And I realized that the reading was secondary. And for me, what was primary was working with the symbols that represented various cosmic truths. And when I started working with the symbols, my inner life, my inner worlds um, began to open up. And so what I mean by that is I started having visions, some with Jesus, some with angels and many other beings and different environments and so forth and so on. I gradually started having many out of body experiences, where I would be taken out of my body. And by the way, I didn't try to do any of these things. These were all spontaneous. And so if somebody asks me to teach them how to do the kinds of experiences that I've had, I would be lost. I have no idea how these things happened, but they happen. Um, and so at that point, I started to have the out of body experiences where I would be taken to these, shall we say, universal or cosmic universities. And I would attend class. There'd be other, shall we say, beings in the class, and there'd be teachers from all different traditions teaching the classes, which had to do with understanding the nature of the universe, how it worked, and so forth and so on. And that went on, believe it or not, for about 20 years. So I guess I was a slow learner. But, I was attending this school and having many other related experiences. For about 20 years, I'd go out on different field trips with the instructors where we would visit different planets and stars, and I would be able to see all the various dimensions in the various heavenly bodies and come to the realization that I could experience those dimensions by clothing myself with the material that existed in the various dimensions. I also had the opportunity to go off by myself and practice dying, which over the years I probably did 15, 20 times. I practiced dying with the purpose of overcoming the fear that I had had since I was a young lad, that fear of dying. And in the beginning, of course, I would go through an experience of dying, whether it be in a atomic war, or being shot or killed with a bow and arrow or falling off a cliff, whatever. I'd go into the death experience, and fear would come up, and I'd end up back in my body. Well, after a few years of doing this and practicing, I was finally able to sustain the death experience without fear. And once that happened, I went into the white light each time. And then when I popped out the white light, I found myself out there in the universe, a pure consciousness, just that pure beingness, no body. Um, and just traveling here and there. And I discovered in my travels out of the body that the key way to navigate from one place to another was through the modality of attention. And so it was actually even more than thinking, because in those states, there really wasn't thinking as we know it. There was more like pure attention. So if I would shift my attention to one particular place that I wanted to go to, that's where I would go. So it was all about attention, which which underlined the importance to me of the practice of mindfulness, which is also about attention in the present moment. So I saw a connection, a parallel between the importance of attention out of the body and in the body. And that's why I became even more enthusiastic about specializing in teaching mindfulness, because I saw the connection between there and here. And that's sort of a synopsis of something, once again, that I could go on for 2 or 3 days talking about, but that's about it.
You've got all of our attention, and in a second, we're going to get everybody's attention. So we're going to do this way earlier than normal. I'm going to light some sage. People can catch it through two screens. There's no time and space. Just allow your focus, as Paul likes to remind everybody, be in your body. It takes care of 90% of everything, if not 99.9999 to infinity% of all your situations, drama, Rama, no Rama, no drama, just Rama. I'm going to light some sage. You can catch some smoke through two screens. It's a staple of this show. I've got one rule or bit of structure I've probably forgotten to say in the last 4 tapings of this show. The rule or structure is set your intent. That's just, hey, universe, angels, loving guides, my ancestors who love me, get me out of my head into my heart, make this nice, help me catch sage, but why settle for linear and get sage when you can have sage, flowers, ocean, and if you're like off the charts seasoned loosey-goosey and you're like, yeah, whatever, I got this. Sage, flowers, ocean, ask for something special on top of that. If you need light going by, it's a lot easier than you think it is, because this isn't about thinking, it's about less thinking, or even no thinking, as Paul would say. Paul, you're the guinea pig, the goose. in the spotlight right now. You've done this before. We did it before the show too. We cheated. We know it works. Are you already tasting it? Are you smelling it? I don't have any smoke yet. That's right there. We already just hit one single. We'll go for a double. Getting the sage. Juniper
Nice.
ridge sage, red-tailed hawk feather, one of those rainbow shells, abalone, something like that. I use a Crate and Barrel tea light, $2. I'll put those on sale one day, so I don't hurt the rainbow thing. Okay, now, are you getting any flowers? Jasmine,
Yeah, you seem to know ahead of time what I'm smelling. It's usually jasmine.
I got away with that and I just let it fly. So I'm proving that I'm a little psychic, although I try to keep it completely shut down. What is the point of telling anybody anything when you, and I'm talking to the audience, have every ability in the world to do anything? You're going to get some incredible questions with 3 angels after this. I'll show my light. We'll do one other exercise with our hands. I'll try to remember that. But Charlotte's going to answer some questions about things you've just brought up in the last 10 minutes that are fascinating. Okay, so there's a little bit of that. There was Jasmine. Any ocean going on? Wailea, hold on. I've got a microphone here. I forgot I can do this. Catch a little Wailea Hawaii breeze on the nose or in the air around you. Did you get a little Hawaii?
Yeah.
Oh, and we are not messing around here. And if you'll ask for something extra special, it's private to you. Just say got it when you got it. Yeah, I won't know what it is. The audience won't know what it is. But in 2030 in Germany, New Zealand, and Japan, they're hitting the subscribe button, liking, and commenting because you're groovy and you're super awesome for being on the show. Okay, next, light. This is so much easier. People, here's a dad joke for you. And all you have to do is laugh. That's letting go. It's that simple. If you can fall asleep at night, dental floss is probably a little hard. Brushing your teeth, walking through a living room, that's the level of complexity we're talking about. Nothing else. Thinking says otherwise. Okay. Background, but blue sky is number 1. Here's the dad joke. Santa's reindeer, Blitzen and Dancer, just those 2. Why do Blitzen and Dancer, Santa's reindeer, drink so much coffee? Because they're Santa's Starbucks. See a filament of light between my fingers? What color do you see, Paul?
Purple.
Okay, I didn't do it. Just blame angels. I'll do it this way. Here's a regular Bic lighter. What color is that, Paul? Orange, white, yellow, gold?
Yeah, it's got all that there.
Okay, good. Some people said blue because down below in the thing, I guess, is blue as well. I'm going to use my finger, but not burn my finger. We'll do a little of my energy. Hold on. And I'll even keep it on camera versus off camera. Sometimes I'm like this. Do you see anything? No. Okay, here we go. One more dad joke. What's the only flower found on the human face? Tulips. Can you see any light here?
Yeah.
What'd you see?
Yellow.
Yay. Again, I didn't do it, except I guess it is my energy. Blame me. Don't blame Canada, but blame angels too. Now, here's the next thing. Hand. That's why I'm rubbing my hands. Didn't even know it. If you don't mind putting your hand up, but not our bill-paying thinking side, our materialist science side. We're using our post-materialist hearts. I'm trying to make a joke there. We're using our wide open selves that are already energetic and fully there. If you don't mind putting your hand up, feel what you can feel. Breathe through the mouth extra. This would be like, which way would you want to play tennis? Would you want to be uptight thinking about what you didn't do yesterday, paying the IRS? Or would you rather be in the heart, hitting an amazing winner and having fun, yelling, yay? Feel what you can feel. Don't judge. Paul, can you feel a little twitch, a sparkle, a tingle?
Yeah, I feel the energy.
Cool. Well, hey, you got to use at least 2 adjectives. This is a tough show, and we make the experts work hard.
There's tingling and there's what was the other word before I said tingling?
Sparkly,
Pulsating. It's
pulsing.
pulsating.
We'll take it. Okay. And that's it. But now I got a couple quick questions for you. You said something really critical that has popped up a lot of times, both in the 1970s from Seth, the light being, Jane Roberts. It helped start the whole New Age craze in a sense. And those writings are pretty incredible. You've visited those and revisited those many times, and I think it makes more sense to you over time. Where you put your attention is where you go, whether it's surfing or what you talked about on the other side or beyond, or just in the greater waking reality of our waking dream here. Do you mind asking Charlotte to share something with you about how, and I've heard this from, I don't know if it was a Pleiadian, an angel, but if you really put your focus on a place, you have no limits in this atmosphere, this Earth school. Good luck with that. It could take 10 lifetimes before you'd even get scratch the surface and allow for 1% more letting go. So the stuff that we did was really nice just now, but you literally, if you put your focus, it's called manifesting, it's called other stuff, it's called going there. If you knew a Nantucket Beach perfectly and you kept focusing on it, Seth talked about, you could actually be there. But let's punt to an angel named Charlotte, who's everybody's favorite school teacher from childhood with words meant to help you expand. She'll give you something personal so this stays juicy, but then could you regurgitate it in a way that's interesting for us based on your experiences?
You mean regarding attention?
Yes. And where you put your attention is where you kind of flow and go.
Yeah, so what comes up is that old saying, which you kind of said in a different way, where attention goes, energy flows. And which is easier said than done. Attention is a funny thing, particularly nowadays when you've got so much adrenaline and stress hormones flowing in your nervous system. It's hard to keep our attention steady and in the present moment. And by the way, the body always represents the present moment. So we always want to stay in our bodies in the present moment, which you referred to before. Excuse me. So I'll give you a metaphor, and this is the best way that I understand attention. So you're in the ocean, you're in a boat, maybe just a rowboat, but without any oars. And maybe there's a sail in the boat, small sail. And so the wind is just kind of taking you wherever it's taking you. So that's the wind, number one. That's one of the elements. The currents in the ocean are also taking you wherever it's going to take you. The waves are taking you wherever it's going to take you, and so forth and so on. And so what's happening is the elements are just taking you here and there without any say on your part. So how do you have some say in where you're going? And the way you do it is you put a rudder on the boat. As soon as there's a rudder on the boat, you can choose where you want to go, and you can enlist those elements to help you out on your journeys. And that's what attention is. Attention is that rudder, which allows us to choose and make decisions in our life without being the victim of the haphazard elements that play into our lives, whether it be other people or just the elements themselves, wind, air, earth, fire, and so forth and so on. There's a lot of things that influence how our lives go, least of which is ourselves. And so in order for us to get involved in this journey, we need that rudder on our boat. And that rudder is attention. And the way you hone that attention is through practice. And that's what the practice of mindfulness does. You're working with exclusively attention. It's all about attention and focusing it on the various experiences of the body, whether it be the breath or the physical sensations or thoughts or emotions and so forth and so on. And every time you notice that your attention has wandered, you bring it back. And so every time there's a repetition, you're fine-tuning and honing that ability to keep the attention focused in one place for extended periods of time. And that's really what attention is all about here in this body. And like I said before, it works the same way in other places, shall we say, out of the body. And I'm glad that you emphasize the importance of being in our bodies, because that's really our first responsibility, is to be in our bodies. So many people understandably want to have these altered state experiences where they're out of their body so that they can, understand better how the universe works, how they work, and so forth and so on. And so they embark on these journeys to explore altered states in many, many different ways before they're actually in their own bodies. And it can be very counterproductive if you put the cart before the horse. So my recommendation regarding altered states, et cetera, and access to the universal information is get in your body first through the medium of attention, and then you can explore safely all those other um, approaches that have been developed in all of the various meditative and contemplative traditions over thousands of years.
And people can get in touch with you. You help them figure out the difference between mind and body, and based on a lot of things. I mean, you've done John Kabat-Zinn teachings forever. You've been certified a bunch of different ways. It's on your website, stressbeaters.com. Again, you've been doing this for 55 years. You do classes. You've done this all over the place. You've been on stage with Deepak Chopra. You taught at Omega at one point. I'm going to give you a couple quotes. I was going to do this while you were talking and be like, what did you say? But it's too late to do that. I'll give you a quote, though, that's sort of related to this. You change the way that you shape the light which is flowing through you by changing your consciousness. Gary Zukav from Seed of the Soul. How would you alter that or tweak it just a teeny bit using some of the language you've talked about? You change the way that you shape the light with a capital L, which is flowing through you by changing your consciousness. How would you just shift that a little into a Paulism?
What I noticed in those altered states that I spoke about was that there's an essential part of us that exists multidimensionally, shall we say. And so let's say, generally speaking, we'll just take one dimension that's outside the body, also understanding that there are multiple dimensions in where we exist. But let's say one dimension outside the body where our essential being, let's say, resides, and our essential being being made up of various types of energy. Which once again corresponds to the potential of the body. The body has the same potential to experience those types of energies in the body. And so going under the assumption that most of us to some degree or another are outside of our bodies, unless you're practicing mindfulness and actually coming into the body, then it stands the reason that that energetics part of ourself is outside the body. Once we start doing the practice of focusing the attention on the body, what it does is it creates a bridge between our energetic body and our physical body. And through that bridge, through that medium of attention, it brings the energetic body into the physical body. And so some of you have, I'm sure, heard about the system, the Eastern system of chakras and meridians. And so what happens is that energetic body that for most of us is outside the body, once it comes in the body, it ignites through the process of induction. It ignites the chakras and the meridians. And when that happens, the energetics of your physical body go through a complete transformation. And so that's it in Paul Sugarese.
A nutshell, yes.
In a nutshell.
At some point, Susan Taylor Shire, I need to get you and Susan Taylor Shire onto a panel together. You both have a lot of similar experiences and backgrounds. Very interesting to then hear you both talk. Finding a third person will be my opportunity for growth to join you both. With that, Seneca once said, back to your boat analogy or metaphor, best to steer, not to talk. We're in a podcast where we have to talk for a living. Let's get another angel in here to comment on what you were talking about. I'm going to put up Min Minwala, a soft-spoken professor who's light waves of energy and water, a serious background, not trying to be serious here, but more galactic, but also Mother Hawaii. I've always known for 13 years she's got a touch of Hawaiian spirituality in her. We'll call it more than a touch in one sense. Here's Min. You've met her before. What does she say about this big topic for humanity, for your attention, for being in your body, for your soul's acceleration and growth as it experiences many different realities and dimensions all at once, by the way?
Yeah, so the word integral comes to my mind. It's integral. Am I pronouncing that right? I'm
I
having
think
trouble.
so, but who's the famous author that's part of Ubiquity? Ken Wilber. I've always had like ascension, integral, and archetype are the three biggest bits of lingo that mankind uses that I do not understand yet. I'm getting there. But how do you use that word, and can you explain it in layman's terms?
Yeah, well, my understanding of integral is simply that it means it's important.
There we go.
Yeah, so I know how Ken Wilber uses it, and I'm familiar with his writings, a brilliant guy for sure. I tend to be a simpleton. My tendency is to take complicated things and make them simple. Which for all of Ken Wilber's brilliance, he seems to do the opposite. He takes all of the very simple things and makes them more complicated. But I think, his audience tends to gravitate toward the intellectual. And so for every audience, there's somebody that's speaking to them. And Ken is very effective in teaching and addressing his particular audience. It's just mine's very different. Mine is really the distillation, people who are looking for the distillation of all these different concepts into very, very simple terms.
Okay, what are angels? Are angels with us? Here's joy, and here's a harmony, and here's Archangel Michael. They can kick out a couple patented, minted, approved by angels answers for you. You, of course, are going to have your own definitions. I'll remind people they come in all shapes, sizes, colors, with all different types of backgrounds and all different senses of the concept of backgrounds. They're here to help. They're not here to interfere. They're unconditional love. And let me finish reading the slip of paper I don't have in front of me. They're just here to help. If you'll get out of your own way and ask for the help, let the universe do its job, you'll be very surprised. Trust me on that. There's Joy, Harmony, and Archangel Michael. What did you hear from them, and what would you like to share about angels? Did you get something from Joy, Harmony, and Archangel Michael?
Yeah, I'm getting a feeling like of expansiveness in my chest, shall we say, heart, where it just feels like it's opening up and pushing out the boundaries, so to speak.
And what's Harmony specifically have as a reminder for mankind to relax a little more and let everything unfold in an even more beautiful way?
So yeah, so the word trust comes to me. And so perhaps one of the things that humanity is learning at the present moment is how to trust.
Hard to believe, but not. Yes, trust more, allow more, think a little less. What would you want to share if you're writing your own script here, which you technically are? This is your show. You've done this a lot with me, whether we're on camera, off camera. Why don't you pick a topic out of the hat like a proverbial rabbit and tell us about something?
Mm,
Always interesting, isn't it? You can't just come on
yeah.
the show and do a normal interview.
Well, I'll tell you. Uh, you mentioned this word earlier, the word manifestation. And coincidentally, I just started listening to a podcast today, and the interviewer was interviewing someone who was speaking about manifestation. The interviewer is Dan Harris, who I'm sure some of you folks have heard about, and trying to remember who he's interviewing. I don't remember at the moment, but I can look at my trusty.
Dan Harris is the former or current ABC reporter, 10% happier, and he's spoken at Omega Institute, speaks again this year.
Yeah, so the interview is with the Stanford neuroscientist, um,
James Doty.
Tom Doty, is that his name?
Yeah, James Doty.
James Doty. James Doty. Yes, there it is, James Doty. And so I'm about 20 minutes into that. And so I'm sort of on the jag of how do we manifest? And so something that they begin to talk about, which I'm very much in agreement with, is how these various approaches that have been popular in the past, like positive thinking, that that book that was very popular for a while, The Secret, and things like that, just don't work. And Dan was very much in agreement. James Doty, of course, very much in agreement and very concerned that people are being misled.
Well, and I'll add, because I've had conversations with him just for having a virtual tea or an in-person tea in Austin when he was headed to South by Southwest. We should give some context about his background. Pure scientist in a way. He'll say he's an atheist and also that he doesn't believe in angels, just to add some background. And then I don't think that's anything shocking in any way.
Yeah, he's in pure, I mean, yeah, he's pure science. He's, I believe his title is a neurobiologist, and he teaches at Stanford. Um, and besides the fact that he knows from personal experience that The Secret and positive psychology and stuff like that simply don't work, he also emphasizes the fact that there's no science behind it whatsoever. And being a scientist, he feels that, that's very important. And even though you and I have, just discussed that science only goes so far and you have to rely on our inner experience and so forth and so on, there are certain things that need some backing up in the world of science, at the very least to be reproducible, none of which was able to be done with positive psychology and The Secret and related approaches like that. And so they're getting into the whole idea of what I've been working with for many, many years. And that is that we need to fine tune the intuition so that when we do certain types of visualizations, in order to manifest things that we're looking to manifest in life, that it actually works and it becomes effective. The other thing that they emphasize, and not that I've always emphasized as well, is most of the people who were involved in positive psychology and The Secret and so forth and so on were looking to visualize and manifest things that they wanted, not things that they needed. And so it usually ended up being fancy cars, an expensive house, lots of money in the bank, so forth and so on. And the very, very few people that were able to accomplish that, James Doty being one of them, discovered that once they got all of those things that they visualized for, they were still very, very unhappy. And there was still that hole inside of them that needed to be filled. And that was one of the things that really brought James Doty around to realizing that what he was doing with this manifestation principle was not legit, was not working. And so he came around to the realization that he needed to shift into developing what he needed, not what he wanted. And what he needed to begin with was something to be of service to himself, to people around him, and to the world around him. And so he always placed, and he has always placed, service first, which is really what we all need. And once service is placed first, and helping ourselves and helping others to be better, then that principle of manifestation can work better. And it's much more effective in helping us to get into a position where we feel that sense of accomplishment and that sense of purpose in life, which is really at the basis of everything that we need to be experiencing. And that's how true manifestation needs to be working. And as we go in that direction, we find that it also fine tunes our ability to be in sync with our intuition. It decreases the fear and anxiety that's being thrown out from our survival instinct. It purifies the way the mind works, the way the rest of the body works, and the emotions work, and so forth and so on. Therefore, making it much more effective in our ability to manifest these things that deepen our purpose and our service in life.
Manifestly so, but can thinkers get out of thinking long enough to actually tap the universe? We'll find out in the decades to come. What's your personal answer on, is it thinking all the way that gets you there, science all the way, or is it something beyond all that? It's got to happen from the neck down. We'll call it the heart. Some people call it the chakras. It's a connection to the universe. In a way, is mankind not starting from scratch all over again?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Is mankind starting from scratch all over
Hold
again?
on. And let's go ahead and bring in about 8 figures, from Sai Baba to Geronimo to Charlotte to Min to Plato to Joy. Let them weigh in for a second as you're contemplating the response. Remember, Dan Harris also has a background. I'm not going to get it quite right. He may be atheist. I forgot the thing. It doesn't matter I mean, I'm not religious, atheist, agnostic, any one way. I just like to say yes to the universe. I'm super hyper creative and enthusiastic. So you got to take me with a grain of salt. But that's gotten me a long way and keeps the riffraff away. Yes, I said that. I'm kidding. Okay, here's Charlotte. What does Charlotte say about this? One of these eternal questions of, heart or mind?
It's it's not even both. It's more than both. So it's mind and it's heart and it's the rest of the body. It's everything that's in the body. It's funny because what I've noticed with neuroscientists is their emphasis is on the brain and usually at the expense of the heart. And then I also notice that the people who are deep into compassion and things like that, they do it at the expense of the mind. The emphasis is on compassion, which is great, and the heart and all of those things, but at the detriment to the mind. And so they sort of throw the baby out with the bathwater. So what I've discovered is not only is it both the mind and the heart, but it's the rest of your body as well. All of the organs, all of the energetic systems, the chakras, the meridians, the endocrine system, the cardiovascular system, every system in the body. So it's the whole package. So yes, the mind is important, the heart's important, but so is everything else, including, let's say, the vagus nerve, which, is in the gut. And so supposedly we have another mind that exists in the gut, and that is true. Science is just discovering that. Science is just beginning to wake up. So it's the whole package that's really important.
Okay, so there are consciousness institutes, and you could say the same thing about the consciousness crowd. They're approaching it from I want to find consciousness. And there's the quantum, I'm sorry, give me the kind of new age spirituality expression. It's quantum something, quantum field, quantum physics, quantum something. What is the popular but more spiritual version of that? Quantum physics, quantum something,
Well, there's quantum mechanics,
quantum field, maybe?
the quantum field, the string theory. I
Angel
mean,
said
there's
about that crowd, even though it's a very popular crowd at the front of a lot of discoveries and so on, they said they're seeking the light that's already within. That's what Angel said one time about that crowd. So I don't care what language you put in there, cultural, religious, the Plato crowd, the Buddhist crowd, the this crowd, the chanting crowd, the mudra crowd, the this crowd. There's 40,000, 100,000 communities. If you're approaching it from only one direction, it's all there is. It's already all within you. The more you can get out of mind, phrases, and experience and allow and get into that body, I think the quicker people will have a broader aha moment and get beyond any one channel or flow of water. It's an ocean of experience. At least that's my guess. Let's ask
Yeah,
Angel,
well,
who's yeah.
just quickly, you could call the people quantum theorists,
Hmm.
which are all the physicists who are in the field of quantum study. Um, the exciting thing about the field of quantum study, and their proponents will say it's bringing together science and spirituality, and it is. The reality of quantum study is that very little of it has been proven. It's all theory, but it's popular theory, and people like it, because it talks about how to bridge the gap between science and spirituality.
Hmm.
But they have a ways to go. They need to prove these theories. But I like to think that they are smelling the coffee. And at some point, they will, I believe, invent the instruments that are able to quantify and verify their theoretical suppositions.
Hmm. Here's an angel again, light waves of energy and water with a serious background. She can add to this dialogue quite a bit. What are you hearing from me?
Yeah, well, I kind of get that she is involved with that, kind of oversees it to a certain point, that quantum field theory, a group of people. It's fascinating stuff. Um, Maybe that's where she likes to hang out, is helping bridge that gap between quantum theory and spirituality.
Okay,
Which, of
now,
course, part of that bridge consists of consciousness. So you could say, here's quantum theory, here's spirituality, and then you've got a bridge. That bridge is probably consciousness. So they're wading into stuff that is appealing to so many people. Um, but it's going to take a while for them to really prove it in a way that will satisfy science, unless science begins to redefine itself.
it could be 50, 60, 100 years at the scientific rate of discovery. At least my 13 years could have gone by if I was a New York City business person like I used to be and judging this. I could have gotten my 13 years done in 6 months. But that's me being harsh. It's unfolded perfectly how it is. I love giving people the opportunity. They don't even know sometimes. They could listen and meet a Pleiadian, an angel, Einstein. But, opening openness is not the easiest thing. Here's Geronimo, though, with a very blunt assessment. He doesn't beat around the bush. He should come in lightning quick. He likes to talk in terms of slang. Just do it. You already know the answer. Duh. What's he saying about this whole topic?
Yeah, so along the same lines that you just said, what I'm hearing is jump into the world of spirit.
Yeah, both feet in. Don't have to worry about holding onto the tree. At the Falls of Lana in Vermont, I held onto that tree for 20 minutes while my friends talked me into letting go and jumping feet first into the fall down below. It's not easy letting go. And that was one of the quotes I wanted to start the show with. It's a NASA astronaut quote. Story Musgrave, might be in his 90s, super nice man, wrote me a note a long time ago just saying he talks to his angels. And it was one of the most encouraging notes. I've kept it. It's unfortunately not handy right now. But wow, when I got that, it motivated me for another like 3 years to stay the course. He said, getting out of the comfortable path, that's what exploration is all about. I sometimes think that scientists, as well as me and anybody else on any given day and any given week, we're like tortoises. We want to keep our head in the shell. Exploring the unknown, opening openness is scary, but it's the last place any of us want to go, our own heart here. I've got Sai Baba from India, Mr. Miracles. You love this guy. He'll bring anybody incense from India if you're willing to let go. Is it possible to smell Indian incense as if a temple is 10 meters behind you? Why not? Just allow, ask, and receive. Here he is, colorized version. Let him wink, smile. Is it possible a photograph can move? Why not? Science says no. Your own logos, your own rationale, your psyche, your ego, your reason. that wants to keep you locked tight in a jail cell. The door's always open. Plato's cave metaphor. It will say no, but you can get a wink, a smile, catch that Indian incense. Paul, are you catching any flowers, Indian incense, or temple music in the air?
I'm getting sandalwood.
I didn't do it. And what's Sai Baba specifically? These are eternal questions. So in a way, we're spinning around trying to judge it, and we shouldn't, because everyone's perfectly on their path as they are now, doing the best they can. Let's do Don Miguel Ruiz. No one's running around saying, I'm wrong, or trying to waste their energy.
That is true.
What's Sai Baba saying about the whole enchilada called mankind and mankind's expansion?
Yeah, so it helps to have the experience that anything is possible.
And then you know you can't put the blinders on, the limits, or hide behind science, or hide behind this practice or that practice, and declare yourself an expert and then preclude all other possibility. But that's exactly what we all do. I do it by judging anything and anyone. I'm limiting myself. I'm limiting mankind. Whoops. I did it again. Okay, here's joy, very cosmic, loving angel everywhere at once. Open your eyes to find love or joy. What's Joy saying? And she keeps it so high vibe.
Yeah, I'm getting that heart thing again. Lots of heart today.
Yeah, sort of like this. Okay.
Good.
And I have not figured out how to turn on Zoom yet. I want the ticker tape or the confetti. I've had guests who, when they do this, you get the thumbs up on the screen, and we've gotten confetti from guests. There's a way you can turn it on that if I do this, no, if I do this, I get confetti coming down. I want to do that all the time. I want to say, Paul, great response, and then make confetti rain down. Here's Plato, the philosopher. You can see the old man's face in the photo.
Oh, there it is. Yeah.
Yep. And Plato is the #1 expert on this. He's the best. It's like watching an NHL, National Hockey League game, and having your #1 sports announcer present to call the shots. I mean, oh my gosh, could we have better than Plato right now? What's Plato saying? Paul, you've got this crisp and clear.
Let's see. Plato says a lot.
You mean he's talking a lot right now and you're barely able to catch up?
Yeah. He's a very, very wise guy. Or is he a wise guy?
Both.
Yeah.
This day and age, we'll make him a wise guy. Let's elevate him a little.
Yeah. Yeah. Once again, I think he's encouraging people just to stay the course, because this kind of unfolding is a gradual unfolding. It takes time, and so many people are in such a great rush, understandably so, because so many people are stuck in suffering and they want to get out of it. But staying the course, I think, is a message that I get from looking at Plato.
I'm going to read a passage for you. It's a good time to just get a little break while I do some talking for 30 seconds. It's from Listening to Angels. I forget to say that on the shows. Written by angels. If anyone thinks I wrote this, I saw balls of light. Look at the cover of the book. As I was typing, there's absolutely no way. Paul has known me for at least 2 years now, will testify there's no way I wrote this stuff. What's up with mankind? Why angels now? In the appendix section of the $7.99 book on Amazon. #2 bestseller twice. No one can claim that honor. And Anita Morjani wrote a little review. So thank you, Anita, if you ever watch the show. And please come on as a guest. Okay, here we go. Awareness for mankind is on the horizon. Call it a spiritual awakening if you wish. It's a chance for all to grow. Mankind is ready for more unconditional love and compassion for all. And more compassion by all for all is needed. Mankind is ready for change from rat race mode. Happiness is obtained in the absence of ego. Ego's afraid to be vulnerable, to let go, and to be in the unknown. Again, there's nothing to lose and nothing to gain. Move past seeing the negative. Compassion can be taught through one's actions. How? Slowing down would do a world of wonder for most people. Doing it consistently is where the problems and opportunities lie. So stay present, stay in your body, as Paul would say. Start right now. Letting go means less thinking. Do not get lost in perceived tasks, roles, ego, and so on. Being in the moment is to do compassion for all. For individuals, an egoless path would be great, but it's just not realistic. Allow ego to serve as a reminder when it pops up, a reminder for what you decide. How about a reminder to breathe? How about a reminder to enjoy each moment as it comes? Believe that all moments can be the same. Whether it's a moment at work or a moment looking at nature, all moments are the same and peaceful. Only thinking something can interfere with this. Likewise, they're not separate paths for mankind or separate worlds for individuals. One is one. Through awareness and owning the consequences of one's thoughts and actions, a person begins to see how all of life is truly interconnected in one. Faith in all, faith, religious, non-religious faith, letting go, being in the heart, faith in all can lead to a change in mankind. This is the path for all of man. This is about man bringing peace and joy to all. This is about your personal growth in your life and finding the next stage in your soul's development, as well as the continued evolution of mankind. The greatest gift is allowing. All is growth and change. This is frightening for some. There's nothing to do here. Slow down the doing. Instead, breathe, smile, and relax. Appreciate all. Compassion for all is life. This is also about acceptance for all. Regard others as yourself generously and without fixation. Believe in all. It is much simpler than people think. Again, this is because this is not about thinking, but less thinking. Open yourself up to life. Speak with us, angels. Be. Paul, what's your reaction to this? And can you talk for a good few minutes about this?
Who said that again?
Angels, collectively.
Oh, collective angels.
Yeah, and this is like, you can ask Sai Baba and Michael, did they really say that? I mean, Michael was one of the authors of that. Charlotte, everybody.
Yeah, they said it together. It was like a chorus of angels. Now there's a phrase.
Yep. A whole
Yeah.
chorus line here of angels. And now, was that kind of spot on the money? I mean, don't blame me. I didn't mishear as I was typing that. I think that's incredible stuff. There's clearly no way I wrote that. Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
there's nothing there that of course, that I would disagree with. Nothing at all. And
But
it's
how is it our opportunity daily to let go of the details? Go ahead and Paul sugar this a little. We need you to sugarcoat it a little.
yeah. Okay. So let me talk about compassion for a minute, because that was one of the main messages in what they were saying. I'm going to make it easy for people as far as compassion is concerned, because I noticed that there are a lot of teachers out there and courses that you can take, workshops that teach compassion. And so it's just another thing that we have to learn is what's being presented there. And frankly, that has not been my experience. My experience has been that compassion and related experiences such as love, appreciation, empathy, gratitude, forgiveness, kindness, those are all sort of bundled up together with compassion. To me, all of those experiences and our ability to express them already exist in our bodies in a latent stage. Okay. And so it's almost like the switch needs to be turned on. And so reflecting back on what I was talking about regarding our energy bodies, and through the medium of attention, bringing the energy bodies into the physical body, thereby igniting the physical energetics. And once that happens, we come to the realization that compassion, love, compassion, forgiveness, kindness, empathy, appreciation, gratitude, those are not things that need to be learned. Those are things that are already baked into the cake. That's who we are. And really all we need to do is focus on getting rid of what the impediments are, what's blocking those experiences and our ability to express those experiences. And what's blocking it is once again, that fear that exists in everybody who, to some degree, is stuck in the fight or flight mode. And so coming into the body, getting rid of the fear and the anxiety, allows all of those experiences, those positive experiences, to just bubble up into the present moment and into our present moment consciousness. And that's where we have the realization that never really had to learn these things because they were always there. It was just something that was in the way, that was blocking them from being experienced and expressed. And so I think that's an important message that should be sent to people so that they realize that it's not all that complicated, and these are not skills that have to be learned from scratch. You need to just clean your glasses, take your glasses off, any of the dust that's on your glasses, clean them off, put the glasses back on, and you'll see clearly. And when you're seeing clearly, you're also experiencing all these very positive human and universal experiences and traits.
Beautiful, Paul. Hey, we're going to start to wrap it up. We're just going to have you share a couple of little minor things in your storyline. Then we'll close it out. You're, of course, invited back into June of 2025, which you didn't even know you were being invited back on, but it'll be a full 6 months later, to be fair to you. Could you share with us one of those moments that you had something serendipitous, synchronicity, you just could not believe? Maybe an angel in human form or a stranger with sparkly eyes. You got done interacting in some form or fashion, and you did a head take or double take. You were like, wait, is that person even still there? You heard just what you needed to hear. You were saying it the day before. Could you share with us one of those moments where you're like, wait, what just happened? Or it's inspirational all these decades, later. Do you have one of those? Not your near-death experience. You've shared that on other shows, your out-of-body experience and visions, seeing angels in the, smoke and brimstone version. Do you have one of those you could share?
I have many, 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 but the one that's coming to mind is years ago, I took a trip to Peru and Bolivia um, to indulge my hobby of archaeology and ancient, civilizations, so forth and so on. So I landed in Lima. I rented a Volkswagen Beetle and was driving through Peru on my way to Bolivia, touching all of the various famous archaeological sites, so forth and so on. This is probably around 1974. And I was winding up this mountain. It was a very narrow, well, I was going to say path, and it was probably a path. I'll call it a road to be generous, because my car barely could fit on it. And, looking over to the right, I could see that there was probably about at least a 5,000-foot drop into the valley. I was climbing the mountains at that point. Well, I got to a point where it sort of opened up a little bit wider, and there was a small river to cross in my car. Keeping in mind that this road, very seldom do any vehicles travel on this road. So I'm driving through the river, and it becomes deeper than I thought it was. The car stalls, and it goes dead in the middle of the river. Here I am towards the top of a mountain in a remote part of Peru, very few vehicles ever passing by. And I'm thinking, what am I going to do? 20 minutes later, a Volkswagen bus pulls up, and out come, maybe 5 or 6 Germans. They were all engineers. They were all adept at knowing about Volkswagens, because as they were traveling in their Volkswagen bus, they had all the tools that they needed to repair anything that could happen to that Volkswagen bus. So they stopped, they towed me out of the river, they fixed whatever had prevented my car from working at that point, and then they bid farewell to me. This all happened maybe within what seemed like a period of 30 minutes. And then they just disappeared. And I didn't think that much about it at the time. But I told this story to somebody a couple weeks ago. Maybe it was you. And the suggestion was maybe they were from a different dimension, so to speak. And I started thinking about it. I said, wow, yeah, because I had had other experiences like that, where in retrospect, I would look back and I'd say to myself, did that really happen? This was just too coincidental, too fantastic for something like this to happen. And so I've thought more about that. And so that's, I think, maybe a good example of what you asked me to present. And to this day, it seemed real when it happened. Surely was a fortuitous coincidence, but maybe they were visitors from another dimension who just popped in to help me. Who knows?
Are you ready to get the answers? I've got 4 angels for you. You know 3 really well, maybe the 4th as well. Charlotte, Lucy, who's patience, Claire, who's resilience, and a John, who's synchronicity, serendipity, marshals other angels to get stuff done. I use a 1940s black and white photo of a famous person to get him represented. I don't have him in light energy form. Here's Charlotte. Here's something private for you first, and then sanitize it for us and just say what you're allowed to say. But here at Point Blank Breathe, anybody at home who wants to ask a private question, get an answer, get a hug. Breathe, 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 breathe. No try Yoda. I'll do Yoda's voice to buy a little more time. Do not. There is no try. What's Charlotte saying about the bus and the men?
What I heard was they were physical and non-physical at the same time.
That answers it right there. They know how to bebop around. That's why they're running around they were having a good time. Probably some German beer involved. Okay, here's Lucy, who's patience, critical part of any venture or journey, especially in a Volkswagen stuck in the river in the middle of Peru. What's she say about that adventure in the moment?
A very rare occurrence.
Nice. And Claire, who's resilience, took a little resilience on that one.
Yeah, it's like a reminder of how focused I became during this event.
Interesting. Very interesting. You put your attention on exactly what you needed the universe provide. Allow, ask, and receive is something I forget to say in the show. I always forget everything I'm supposed to say and share. It's okay, though. It'll come out eventually. Here's John. That angel is serendipity, synchronicity. Synchronicity angel is probably what he'd like to be called. Absolutely marvelous. Marvelous. If you ever see a jalopy, a British gent with an ascot at your stop sign, 4-way, and he waves you across as you're walking your dog, maybe do an extra wave to him or go over and ask him how his day is going. Have coffee with him for an hour if you want.
I will keep that in mind.
What's John say about the whole bus? Not an accident?
Not an accident.
And now what else does he add? Let him actually tell you who they were, but you'll keep it from the viewers.
Well, I'll use the one word that he gave, and that is, it wasn't an accident, it was a demonstration.
Okay, now look, we're wrapping it up, but can you share that other story you thought of? I saw your mind flash to it. What was one of the other ones that you know you haven't shared on this show where something happened, somebody popped in, something transpired, and you were like, whoa, where were you? What year was it? And then we'll wrap up the show.
Well, the only other thing that comes to mind is what drew me into the Stargate program that the CIA had back in the 70s. It was a series of, there was, I didn't know this for many, many years afterwards, but somehow I was introduced to a psychologist at Duke University. Later discovered he was interested in parapsychology. He lived one town over from where I lived. It was maybe a 15-minute drive to his house. Somehow he heard about me. I don't remember how. And he invited me over to his house. And he told me about what was happening with this program. They had an office in New York City at the time. And he had heard about my remote viewing experiences. And he asked me if I would be willing to go there and meet the people, so forth and so on. I didn't learn until actually 2 weeks ago that he was the recruiter for the Stargate program back in those days in the 70s. It's a blank to me how I got to him. I don't remember exactly how I got to him, but that was one of those coincidences. What are the chances of me meeting the recruiter for Stargate and that he lived 15 minutes from where I lived?
And this wasn't Russell Targ or anybody like that?
No, I'm trying to remember his name.
Here, Charlotte and Michael, though, can explain how you got connected. Was it his doing, your doing, an intersection of both?
I think what I'm getting is it was a common friend, somebody he knew, somebody I knew that told him about things that I was involved in. Um, yeah, so he's not as famous as Russell Targ and a couple of the others that were really there at the beginning. He was more in the background. Like I said, he was the recruiter.
And I have one more angel for you on that whole experience, whether we're talking before you got in, when you got in, how quickly you got out. Here's Rebecca. She's from way out. Forget Pleiades, forget Andromeda, Orion, Sirius, etc., Lyra, or Lyran, wherever Lyrans are from. Sorry, I'm going to ruin my cosmology here if I said it even right. But she's from even further out where sound comes from, if anybody's interested. But an angel named Rebecca who's a sweetheart. There's actually 4 balls of light in there, 2 and 2. If anybody's seen the cover of my book, you'll see those 2. I'll put that up in a second. Ask Rebecca for something you never knew about that path, how you were being shepherded. There was a greater good for you beyond the program. Did I say that out loud? Whoops.
Yeah.
I try not to say anything out
Yeah.
loud. Okay.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was an interesting experience. And looking back on it, I'm glad that I have the opportunity to see what was going on in that field.
Okay, I'm going to wrap this up with a quote, but then you're going to close us out on an inspirational reminder as we pass through 2024. You're shepherding us into 2025 as the New Year's Eve, New Year's Day guest. So congratulations. I'll leave us with an Eckhart Tolle quote. Ego implies unawareness or thinking, whatever you want to call it, judging, knowing something through proving it. All of that implies actually unawareness. It might sound contradictory, but ego implies unawareness. Awareness and ego cannot coexist. You're either love or you're unlove. Thinking, limitlessness, timelessness. You can't be half pregnant. That was my deep thought of the day. Paul, what's your final reminder for us all?
Okay, so since this is being aired January 1st, 2025, and it's being recorded quite a bit before then, I'm thinking that there's a whole lot of stuff that's happened between today's interview and January 1st, 2025. So I think my message is going to be, regardless of what has happened, and no matter how chaotic it might seem to you, depending on what side of the fence you're standing on, the journey is within. The suffering stops on the inside, and the chaos stops on the inside. And we can embrace that coherence and that peace on the inside and project it outward. so that we become of service to the whole world, everybody and everything in the world. And
Brilliant, brilliant.
so that's my message for the year 2025.
Brilliant. And I'm going to remind everybody watching, you've got all the skills and possibility of anybody we've ever referred to. A New York Times bestseller, some world-renowned psychic. Granted, they might have done it 10,000 times more than you, but this letting go is something you're doing all the time, more unconsciously right now. But give yourself a lot more credit than you do currently. Angels exist. Allow for this possibility and your answers will come. Allow for more in each moment. Positivity itself is abundance. And angels are here to help with mankind and compassion. So that's about following your path. You have a unique life path, whether you knew it or not. And it's never too late to discover it. And it's never too late to simply be on it. You're there already. You just have to kind of whip the blindfold off. Compassion for all is key. Change is coming, all types of change, but it's a chance for us to operate in the currency of love. That's the only energy that matters. No limits. Why not? Okay, Paul Sugar, you're absolutely fantabulous. Thank you for being a guest on Angels, Positivity, and Love. It's wonderful to have you on.
My pleasure, Mike. And once again, kudos to you for providing this tremendous service to people.
Thank you. But without you, we wouldn't have sugar sprinkled all over this setup. So thank you for doing the show, and thank you for all the interactions. You've been truly just a delight and made this journey here for me just, again, delightful. Thank you.
Very welcome.